In the New Testament, the picture of the ideal church is a diverse group of people who ordinarily would have nothing to do with each other, and yet who are united by the gospel. But the realities of living in a fallen world mean that whenever you get a group of sinful people living life together, there is inevitably going to be conflict. And sometimes that conflict is small, it's just differences in lifestyle or opinion. But sometimes it's big, and it blows up, and it affects not just the people involved with that conflict, but the whole group. So as city group leaders, how can we be aware of these dynamics? And how do we handle tension when it comes up in our groups? So in this video, we're going to be looking at how group dynamics work, and then we'll get practical with some tools to help us with these things. The basic idea of group dynamics is that when you get two or more people together, they create a system that works in a certain way. This is the feel of a group, the tone, the mood, that instinctive way that we understand the group working. And we feel this automatically without even thinking about it. For example, a new couple visits our group, and for some reason the discussion is lively and engaging. Or the opposite happens. Somebody new visits our group, and for some reason, the conversation just dies. Now, of course, the reasons for those changes are so complex. Human beings are multifaceted. We're a mixture of family history and personality differences and life stage and so many other factors. And then you get all those complex individuals and you stick them in a group together. Now you understand how complex these systems get. There are people who spend their whole lives studying how groups work. And because the factors of any given group are so specific to that group, there's no point in me trying to give you guidance on every situation. But there is one basic and all-important principle that I want you as a city group leader to embrace. Group dynamics get uncomfortable when we ignore them. And so the best way to bring those dynamics to a healthy place is to talk about them. That's it. Have conversations about your differences. The goal is for your city group to be a space where it's normal and safe to talk about the group itself. We want to create a culture of open discussion about how the group is going. Now, it's usually against our social rules to talk about what is happening, to actually name the process of relationships. But we do have some common scenarios where this comes up. For example, the Minnesota goodbye is when you say goodbye to somebody and then the conversation just continues for another 15 minutes. Have you ever been in that situation? And then somebody says, "Oh, we're doing the Minnesota goodbye, better let you go." That's naming the dynamic. It's talking about the situation and then using that conversation as an opportunity to connect. Let me give you a city group example from my own city group. So one night I noticed that everyone seemed tired and just kind of out of it. What I could have done is to plow on ahead and say, "Well, here we are. I know we're all tired, but let's do the city group thing." Instead, I said, "Wow, it seems like everybody's a little tired tonight, including myself. Let's do an icebreaker question. What is the most tired you've ever been?" And all of a sudden, people livened up and shared their exhaustion stories. Again, all it took was for me to name the dynamic, name the mood of the group, and then turn it into an opportunity to connect. How do we do this well and not in a heavy-handed or judgmental way? To use the previous example, I could have said, "Wow, it seems like you're all tired, but come on guys, we really need to get through these questions, so focus up." See, that makes the dynamic even worse because I've named the mood, but I've used it to shame you. So here are 3 better ways, paired with situations that I've heard from all of you that you regularly encounter in your groups. First, have a curious posture. Leaders tell me all the time that they struggle with people not talking during discussion. I ask a question and it's just silence. Or sometimes it's framed as, "Help, my group is full of introverts and internal processors." But I wonder what would happen if you mentioned this dynamic to the group and then you talked about it. Did you catch what I just did? I used a curious posture to provoke thinking. Say it's a really slow discussion with nobody talking. What if you just stopped and you said, it seems like today there are a lot of us who are quieter and doing more thinking than talking. Can I ask what's going on? Is there anything on your minds? Remember, you are part of the group. It's not like everyone else is the problem and you're the correct one. If you have that attitude, it puts everybody else on guard, like the teacher is about to scold us. By contrast, having a posture of curiosity and wondering puts everybody at ease and in discussion mode about the issue. Second, have a playful posture. These sorts of group dynamic conversations can trend toward the serious and the solemn, but a light-hearted, poke fun at ourselves approach is disarming. It shows that you are not threatened by the dynamics of the group and that you want to talk about it. I've been in groups, I wonder if you have as well, in which most people in the group share nothing but very shallow prayer requests. Pray for my neighbor's son who skinned his knee, that sort of thing. A playful approach might be to start next week's prayer time by putting on a mischievous smile and saying, now I'm noticing that most of us share prayer requests about other people and not about ourselves, which is of course very holy of us, but tonight we're going to be self-centered in our prayers. I'm glad we can pray for your aunt's dog and your coworkers, but I want to know how to pray for you guys. So could we try just sharing prayer requests about ourselves? No judgment, no scolding, just a slight change in direction with a smile. Finally, have a direct posture. Have you ever been in a group where one person overshares about their life? Like the time when I had a visitor come to our group, and on their very first time with the group, they shared that they were abused as a child. That's huge. It was just a bomb dropped in the center of the group. Now, we want our groups to be family. We want our group to be a safe place where the hurting and the broken can find community. And you might decide in that moment, let's put aside our plans for the discussion and let's just talk to this person about some of these issues. But family night is often not the best time to talk about those huge discussions. And you might decide, rather than having the group flounder and not know what to do with this huge revelation, you might decide to speak up and name what's going on directly. You might say something like, that's really hard. I'm so glad that you shared that with us, and we want to be here for you as you wrestle with those things. But would you be open to talking about your story another time, maybe with me and my wife in private? That might let us go into some more depth about these things. So there, the group has acknowledged the dynamics of what just happened. We came up with a compassionate plan to help this person, and then we can move on with the rest of the night. So those are some ideas about how to talk about group dynamics. But what about situations where it wouldn't be appropriate to address issues with the whole group? Maybe you have a dating couple and they break up, making it really awkward whenever they both show up at your city group. I wouldn't want to bring this up with the whole group there. Hey, this is awkward. Let's talk about it. Or maybe somebody is offended or hurt by something you said and they just shut down for the rest of the night. Again, that calls for a one-on-one conversation. And in those conversations, the same principle applies. Conflict festers in the dark. The goal isn't always to resolve it in one conversation, but to at least make a space where conflict is safe to talk about. Now, I know this is so hard for those of us who are conflict avoidant, because it's scary to talk about these things directly. But this should also challenge those who are conflict aggressive, because we are not trying to just charge right in and fix things, but rather to open up and be vulnerable. The posture here is frank, but gentle. This thing is going on between us, and it's hard, or it's painful, or it's awkward. Can we talk about that? Now, there's a lot more we could say about conflict resolution, and maybe I'll do a video on the topic if you would find it helpful. But I hope that this gives you a starting point for addressing some of the tricky things in your group. People are messy. Groups are messier. But the church is meant to be a family where we handle group dynamics differently than anyone else. We give grace, we forgive, we reconcile, We love in word and deed. And as the Lord Jesus said, the love we show each other in conflict, that love is how the world will know that we are his disciples. Group dynamics are fascinating but complicated. And so I've put some resources below that may be helpful to you as you consider these things. Also, if you want to have a follow-up conversation with me about the specific things going on in your group, just let me know. But until then, think about this question. Are there any dynamics in my group that could be helped by having an open, honest discussion? Till next time, leaders.